Well, I didn't even change on today's show. It's just pain, a ton of injuries. God, that was just horrible.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Brayden Uwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Uwasco. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter account, @LockedOnJays. A lot to come on today's episode, but hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Welcome to the Toronto Blue Jays therapy session, because we need it. After a brutal weekend from the Toronto Blue Jays where they get swept by the White Sox, I guess maybe this is what we should have been ready for, heading to play the back-to-back World Series champions. 14-2. Max Scherzer has his 175th injury of the past 2 years. Everybody's injured. The guys who do play aren't playing well. I don't know, Carter. This, I guess, could be a 2-minute episode. I might have just covered everything.
Yeah, you pretty much did. I think the vibes are at an all-time low. I haven't felt this bad. Watching the Toronto Blue Jays, I could honestly say, I think since 2024, and that's not something that you want to say on a podcast with all the negative emotions that we felt in 2024. A lot going bad for the Toronto Blue Jays, exactly like you said. It's either these players are injured or they suck, it seems like. It's either they're not playing well or they're not playing at all. So that's not a good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's 10 games in, and there's been 2 games out of those 10 games that we've had a position player come in to pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays. One of those was against the Chicago White Sox. That all happened in the same week. And it's tough because we understand why this is happening, and there's unfortunately not a lot you can do about it as a Toronto Blue Jays fan. Max Scherzer goes down with an injury. We thought it was the bug going around with the clubhouse, but no, it was something that John Schneider and the organization knew about before. That just adds him to a very long list of players that seemingly are getting hurt every single game that the Toronto Blue Jays play. The mental mistakes, the offense is still horrendous. They were playing like this against the Rockies and the White Sox. Now you get a team like the Dodgers that roll into town, and you get exactly what should happen when you're playing the brand of baseball that the Toronto Blue Jays are playing. They use guys like Justin Robleski, Will Klein. Like, these aren't even like the top of the tier, the top dogs in the Los Angeles Dodgers bullpen. So tough sledding ahead. It's not really a lot to be positive about. There's still the same issues that are going on. There's still the sickness in the clubhouse. I can't imagine that this is going to change all of a sudden in one game. Now, I think the way I'm looking at it, and the way we were looking at it going into the series, if the Toronto Blue Jays can win one game against the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think that is going to have to be taken as a massive win.
Yeah, and we'll get into more so of teeing up the next 2 games and sort of where our heads are at moving forward later on. But I think we have to address the elephant in the room. And we came on this podcast yesterday, and we were pretty fired up from the weekend, right? We were pretty angry. Going into this game, I was thinking, okay, let's get back to some Toronto Blue Jays baseball here. That didn't happen. Max Scherzer goes down as well, adding to the lengthy list of injuries. And that is what has to be addressed. This team is absolutely snake bitten by injuries. And I'm not using that as an excuse, because some guys have to come out and play better, as much as most of the injuries, or a lot of them, are on the pitching side of things. And the pitching, besides this game, really hasn't been the biggest issue, outside of, I guess, Brendan Little as well. But the offense has not done nearly enough either. There are big situations where guys aren't getting hits in. And again, I'm not talking 8th or 9th inning. I'm talking 3rd, 4th inning, bases juiced, or 2nd inning, or bases juiced, or a guy on 2 that you need to get across. It's a lot of things right now. The defense, this is something this team prides itself on, has been horrible. Just straight horrible. And, you know, I want to sit here and say, why in the world is Fleming pitching for this ball club? But in the same respect, this team has a ton of injuries. So it's like a few things are going hand in hand right now. just to bury the Blue Jays. And that's what's happening. It's injuries, it's bad play, one thing leading to the next. And this is where we are, I guess, Carter.
Yeah, I don't want to be the one to make excuses, but we actually just have to realize what is really going on with the Toronto Blue Jays and handle it like face forward and just really embrace what the Toronto Blue Jays are going through right now. Obviously, the sickness in the clubhouse, I think at this point we're starting to realize what the extent to this sickness is, where you saw Eric Lauer, where he could only have a smoothie and he was struggling to keep down liquid calories. Max Scherzer, with all the fight that Max Scherzer has, again, with the injury, a little bit of the sickness stuff as well, he's not able to finish out a game. And Brayden brought up the injuries. Let's go over this list one more time. Looking at the starting rotation by itself, Cody Ponce, Jose Berrios, Trey Yesavage, Shane Bieber, Max Scherzer now on this list with forearm tendonitis. That is a full starting rotation of pitchers. It is going to be tough for any baseball team to overcome that. The Dodgers had struggles through that. They were a wild card team last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like this, there's a reason why they didn't win the division. They had a ton of starting pitching injuries that are very tough to overcome, even for a team as good as the Dodgers. The Toronto Blue Jays have been in conversations that they are a similar team to the Dodgers. We saw that in 2025, how close that World Series was. Having 5 starting pitcher injuries, 10 games into the season. I know some of these track back to last year with Shane Bieber, but you have 5 pitchers that you thought would at some point early on be healthy for your ball club. Now you're down to 3 of them, and Eric Lauer being one of them, dealing with that sickness. Then you're looking at the offense. Addison Barger, they're trying to decide now if he's going to go on the IL with it's a bilateral ankle injury. He's dealing with stiffness in both of his ankles. That's another injury where it's just, how does that happen in both of those ankles? Alejandro Kirk being hurt. That's not even talking about guys like Bowden Francis, Anthony Santander. At some point, this is adding up. And just looking at what has happened recently, like we're 10 games into a season, and this is stuff that has actually been going on. I mean, like looking at Daulton Varsho making errors on Sunday, that just doesn't happen. Tyler Heineman spiking a ball into the dirt on a bunt single. Like Tyler Heineman throwing balls over Ernie Clement's head. Let's just go over the pitching that has been placed down for the Toronto Blue Jays. The pitchers that have been in the games for the Toronto Blue Jays over these last 2 days. Like 10 games into a season, this was if you told me this was the pitching, I would probably say the Toronto Blue Jays aren't having that good of a season. Yesterday, Eric Lauer goes 2 innings. Austin Voth was a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. Joe Mantiply, a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. Spencer Miles, another guy who has looked good in his moments with the Jays. But looking at today, Max Scherzer, Josh Fleming, who I said before went into the game with the couple group chats that I'm in, it wasn't going to be a good start from Josh Fleming. But at the end of the day, you have all these injuries. What are you going to do? Joe Mantiply once again, Tommy Nance, Spencer Miles, and once again, Tyler Heineman. You have these guys being rolled out 2 weeks into the season. That is super hard to overcome. And as much as they may be a little bit of an excuse, this is truly a real thing the Toronto Blue Jays are dealing with right now.
Yeah, Carter, the Toronto Blue Jays have now tied a franchise record for the most pitchers used through the first 10 games of a season, 18, matching the mark set in 2020. That's from Sportsnet Stats on Twitter there as well.
2020 is the COVID year.
Yeah.
People are going on the COVID IL because of a sickness that's going on. I guess maybe it's the COVID. Maybe that's the spin zone that's going on. There's another sickness going on. Like maybe there's some conspiracy theories that we need to bring to light here. But it's just something that truly doesn't happen, at least to the Toronto Blue Jays organization. A lot of adversity. Some is nice to test what a team has in terms of their depth, but at a certain point, it's just very hard to overcome.
No, it absolutely is. And that's sort of, I think we came on here yesterday a lot more fired up. That game beat the hell out of me watching that. I went into it with a little bit higher of hopes. Now, did I think they were going to absolutely blow the Dodgers away or anything like that? No, obviously not. But I was expecting a fight. And then they just get punched in the mouth. Now, I said we'd talk a little bit more about where you go here the next few games. But I want to paint a little bit of a picture here. And I think this is something that gets lost on fans that maybe tune in here and there, or that maybe are just getting back into baseball or getting into baseball for the first time. What we saw today was a throwaway game, right? Max Scherzer goes down early. Fleming gives up a ton of runs. At that point, the Blue Jays are just pitching guys that can give them innings. And this was a game that they said, okay, it's over. Here you go. And why they do that is to prepare for the next 2 games in this series and to not destroy their bullpen in totality. So you lose one to maybe be able to win one of the next two. That's why they did this. So just a little bit of context for those of you that said, well, the Blue Jays got killed by the... Yes, they did get killed by the Dodgers, but it's not like they were putting their best foot forward after it was 6-1 and they were down Max Scherzer and down Fleming. They weren't going to go Varland, Hoffman, Tyler Rogers there. That wasn't going to happen. So this was a team that was throwing in the towel. They got punched in the mouth. They were back on the ropes, and they did what they had to do. So, yes, frustrating. But I think that's why my anger level is where it's at right now and not through the roof, and I'm not jumping and putting my head through the ceiling, is because we knew in the fourth inning that this game was over. So we had 5 innings of baseball to sit there and contemplate our thoughts and feelings, I guess.
It's a tough scenario. It's tough when you're watching this brand of baseball. It's tough when the expectations are a lot higher. And maybe this loss is a little bit easier to digest because it is against the Los Angeles Dodgers and it's not against the Chicago White Sox, just in terms of the expectation with those two respective teams. A lot of people obviously are going to assume that the Dodgers are going to be a lot better of a team than the Chicago White Sox. I said this to you off camera. In the grand scheme of things, a series loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers isn't the worst thing in the world, but when you have everything going on, when you have all of these injuries, and again, we've been talking a lot about the injuries, but you've brought this up earlier in this episode. We've brought this up a lot in the previous weeks. The defense, this is something that just is happening every single game at this point. And some of it's the pitchers, like Josh Fleming made 2 of the errors today. Like, pitchers just have trouble a lot of the time, especially relief pitchers have trouble a lot of the time in terms of the fielding, so I'm not taking too much away from that. But Kazuma Okamoto lets a ball go right through the wickets in this game. Like, it seems like every single game, like, that's a hard hit ball, so I'm not as mad about that. That's going to happen throughout a season. Like, players are going to make errors, but it feels like the Toronto Blue Jays are just shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. And we talked a lot about the injuries. That doesn't really excuse what this offense is doing right now. The at-bats from a multitude of players on this team look absolutely horrific. George Springer at the plate right now. Like, we're kind of talking about this 2025 notion where at the start of the year, at least, you didn't have him as a shoe-in in the number 1 spot. I don't know who else it is at this point, and maybe you don't go away from George Springer, but it has not been good up to this point. Daulton Varsho is another guy, which spring training stats, clearly, as we talk about all the time, really do not matter that much, because Daulton Varsho was tearing the cover off the baseball throughout spring training, and now the at-bats just look absolutely horrendous once again, looking very similar to how they did throughout 2024. And then some parts of 2025. Daulton Varsho's at-bats predominantly look better throughout 2025. But it isn't just an injury issue. There's a lot of other separate issues that are all conjoining into this team. And that is allowing this team, or is really what this team is displaying, is that product on the field where they're just not playing a good caliber of baseball and not doing those simple things that we're accustomed to seeing them do right.
Carter, there's a lot there I want to get into. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Obviously, I think one of the big questions that need to be answered is where does this team go from here? At least in the next 2 games of this series and moving forward. So a lot of answers, a lot of questions, a lot of, feelings to come on the rest of this podcast. Stay with us. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You know, I say, whether it's baseball, whether it's NBA, whether it's NHL, a lot of sports to play, and whether you like to bet single games, if you like to do same game parlays, FanDuel has it all. And I got smoked today on this Blue Jays game because, man, they did nothing. It did not help me out. But you can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app, it makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. So, Carter, a lot more to continue on here. But I do want to start out by going over what you said in this last bit here. Number one, we talked a ton about injuries, but the play on the field. I'll start with the errors, okay? Kazuma Okamoto, hard hit ball, fair enough. That's fine. At some point, though, I don't care. Drop a knee, do whatever you have to do. Plays have to be made. There are a lot of people right now mad still about the Bo Bichette thing and not getting Bo Bichette and get Kyle Tucker. The Blue Jays were never going to pay that kind of money for those guys. Bo Bichette does not make this team better defensively. So if your argument is that you would rather have Bo Bichette over Kazuma Okamoto, you're lost. In the bat, sure, fair enough. Because Okamoto, when he misses the ball, he misses the ball. But he had a good game in this game. The rest of them, I mean, we saw Ernie Clement make a few errors. We saw the pitchers make errors. We saw Tyler Heineman make errors in the past few games. And this is just not Blue Jays baseball. Daulton Varsho, I mean, his arm right now looks like an absolute noodle. Teams know they can run on him as well. Now you take that because of his defense ability is so good, but you can't have him making errors. And the at-bats. Daulton Varsho looks terrible right now, Carter. Absolutely terrible. And probably worse is George Springer. That guy comes to the plate, and I know it's going to just be a pop-up or a pop fly, and nothing's going to be done. And you talked about the fact that where do you go if not put him at number one in the order? And right now, I can't name you a guy I can't name you a batting order right now that would make this team better. And so, yes, early in the year, and we talked about John Schneider in the last episode of what does John Schneider have to do to get the best out of his guys. I don't know if there needs to be a players only. I don't know if there needs to be a full team meeting. But I can't sit here and accept that it's injuries. It is, but it also isn't. You still need your offense to work. You got Dylan Cease and Kevin Gausman on the mound the next 2 days. Your offense has to show up because those guys will give you a chance. I don't know. I'm frustrated at every part of this ball club right now. And I think that's not something I'm used to, right? I think over the past few years, it was, oh, the offense is bad. Or, oh, the starting pitching isn't getting it done for the offense. Or, hey, the bullpen really sucks and they're blowing games. But right now, it's every single part. And I thought the last part of this entire ball club that would be sort of failing them as well is their defense. And that's what's happening to start the season. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think there has to be some type of meeting here.
You gave me a lot to unload there. I'm going to start off with, I'll throw this out. Varsho's arm has just not been the same since the rotator cuff surgery. It's a noodle arm. It's going to be a noodle arm. That's something that, you're not going to fix. Teams are realizing that. You saw it with a double tag. You're seeing it with some double steals where they're taking advantage of the behind-the-plate tandem as well. So teams are looking at what the Toronto Blue Jays' negative aspects are of the team, which the Toronto Blue Jays should be doing to other teams as well, and they are doing that. But their weaknesses are getting exposed, and I think that's another thing that we've been seeing throughout the start of this season. One thing with Okamoto, you brought him up as well. It's been an interesting experience because, the numbers offensively actually aren't that bad if you just take away all of the whiffs. If, you look at the actual basic stats, you look at the OPS, the average, some of the bat-to-ball stuff. Again, maybe it's not as much the bat-to-ball stuff, but the OPS is okay. It's just when he's not getting on base or he's not having a productive at-bat, he's whiffing on everything and he's striking out on everything. So that situation has been very interesting. But at this point, if you were relying on Okamoto to be the guy that's producing right now in April, again, I would falter your expectations. I think that's on you a little bit for expecting Okamoto to come in to a Major League Baseball, to a league that he hasn't necessarily been accustomed to, a league that they threw a lot harder fastballs. It's just they pitch you a different way. Okamoto can be a good baseball player, but he's not supposed to be that guy that is necessarily carrying an offense, and that's exactly where I wanted to go into this Bo Bichette point. It's that some people are saying, oh, Bo Bichette should be on this team. This team's truly missing Bo Bichette right now. If you put Bo Bichette on this team, I was going to go into the stats that he's had with the Mets. One player is not saving this team. Aaron Judge isn't saving this team. Shohei Ohtani is not saving this team. There is a bunch of players throughout the Toronto Blue Jays lineup. You can almost go through the entirety of the lineup. Other than guys I'll just name them out, Davis Schneider, Andres Gimenez, Ernie Clement, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I would say other than those four players, there really hasn't been anyone that productive on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't want to make excuses for this team, but we brought up the injuries. You brought up the sickness. That plays on players' mental. That plays on their emotions. That plays on the way they're feeling throughout just in between baseball games. When you're sick, it's very hard to perform the exact way that you would if you're feeling 100%. So going through this losing streak, going through all these underperformances, having these injuries, and seemingly every single game, another player on the Toronto Blue Jays is going down. At some point, you have to overcome this adversity again. Like, the sickness isn't going to stay within the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse forever, and you can't use that as an excuse forever. But man, like, there's a lot of negative emotions, and we're only 10 games into the season. It feels like at some points the season is over, but again, you really have to fight that urge. You got to realize, hey, again, this team won't be sick for the entirety of the year. You do have reinforcements coming. Trey Yesavage. We'll get into some injury updates. Unfortunately, this is still in like the week-to-week timeline. This isn't like a tomorrow thing. This isn't the next day. There is still going to be about a 2 to 3 week period where the Toronto Blue Jays are in a very interesting spot. So unfortunately, it's not looking great right now, especially in the near future. But the Toronto Blue Jays have to overcome this adversity. It all starts against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You have your two dogs on the mound in Kevin Gausman, in Dylan Cease. You have all of your high leverage bullpen arms available. Again, it's really going to be up to this offense. Can they match what the Los Angeles Dodgers offense is doing? You got two guys that are going to give you a chance to win. Can the offense, fight and have the gritty at-bats, have those tough at-bats to get the Toronto Blue Jays back in a series and just gain a little bit of momentum rolling into that Twin series?
Yeah, Carter, and you know what? You brought up Eric Lauer, or Trey Yesavage there, so I want to talk about him a little bit. He's pitching in Dunedin on Thursday. That's when his scheduled, start is. And you're right. This isn't something that we can hang our hats on and say he's coming back in a week. It might be 2. It might still be 2.5 weeks. It might be 3 weeks. There's no immediate timetable or exact timetable for any of these injuries. These guys have to build themselves back up. And I think where our heads need to be at for the next little while here is scrappy wins. This team needs to find a way to win a few games throughout this little bit of a stretch, and then they are going to have to come back with a vengeance when guys like Addison Barger return, when you have your Trey Yesavage, your Jose Berrios' return. All of these guys from either sickness or injury, they're really going to have to turn the temperature up. And that's something I think is worrying, because when you go through a bad stretch like this, if it continues to persist, that can bleed into the rest of your season. And you can have the feeling that, hey, this ain't the year. That can start to creep in the back of these players' minds. So you have to stomp this out. And if that's having your big dogs like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer turn up the temperature and steal you one, if that's Kevin Gausman somehow pitching a 7 inning of no run ball and handing it over to, Tyler Rogers or Varland or whoever, to Hoffman, to win you a game that way, you need your best players right now to be your best players and steal you games, right? In NHL, you talk about a goalie stealing you games. In MLB, we talk about your star players being able to put the rest of the team on their back and get it done. Baseball is not a single player game. You need everybody. But in some games, if you have Kevin Gausman or Dylan Cease on the mound, they're going to give you a good shot. Put up a couple runs on the board with your big dogs, and hopefully this bullpen can get you 2 or 3 innings of some shutout or 1-run ball, and I think you'll be in some good shape.
I think that's the hardest part as a Toronto Blue Jays fan right now, is that you can't win a pennant in April, but you can definitely lose a pennant. And where you're at right now as the Toronto Blue Jays organization is you're really just trying to stay afloat, because we know there's reinforcements coming. If you can get to May and you're in an okay spot, you don't have to be leading the division, but you can't be, 10-25 going into that point where you have all these guys back and you're so far behind, the 8 ball here that it's going to be very tough to get back into the race. You simply just have to stay afloat. And I think that's a very good point that you made, is that players need to step up. You have these injuries. You have these sicknesses going around. You have these guys that are leaders around the clubhouse. You have a Kevin Gausman. You have Dylan Cease, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Daulton Varsho, the guys that are healthy and the guys that are playing. This is up to them. If they don't want to have this season where maybe it isn't your type of year, and maybe that is due to injuries, due to lack of performances, whatever it ends up being, if they want to, in quotation marks, save their season, because I don't want to say they're saving their season 10 games in, but like we said, this isn't an immediate fix. This is something that this team is going to have to deal with the next week, the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks. Trey Yesavage will probably be the first reinforcement back with the team, and that's looking like it will come at the end of April. You just got to find a way. Again, you don't have the hardest schedule. You just got to find a way to not put yourself so far back that you're completely out of it. You got to overcome the adversity. There are better things ahead for the Toronto Blue Jays, but I think you have to take a step back before you can take that step forward.
Yeah, Carter. So you know what? Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to update you guys on some of the injury situation. Carter's got a big list that he wants to go over. Plus, obviously, we'll tee up the pitching matchups for the next 2 games and sort of get your thoughts and feelings where this team or what this team can do over the next 2 against the back-to-back World Series champions.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance, because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
So, Carter, as we continue on, obviously want to touch on some injury stuff. But just before we do that, because that is, we've talked a lot about injuries. 2 games left against the Dodgers in this series. Kevin Gausman and then Dylan Cease. Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani. This is not going to be easy for this group. I think me and you sit here and hope for 1 game. Are you, I guess you are in the same mind as that I am, is that, yeah, you're going to need a big day from Kevin Gausman. That's about where I'm at here, Carter. I think I'm hanging my hat on the Kevin Gausman start later today, that we need this guy to be prime Kevin Gausman.
The problem with that is the Toronto Blue Jays offense has a lot of success against Yamamoto, right? If Kevin Gausman might be able to go 8 innings of 1-run ball, but I can't say that this Toronto Blue Jays offense is going to score off Yamamoto, especially the way they're playing right now. Even if things were going extremely well, I'd be a little bit hesitant to say, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to have a good game against Yamamoto. It's tough. We said things aren't going to get easier, and you're seeing that against the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is a very good baseball team, a team that, at least right now, early on, again, pennants aren't won in April, but a team early on, it looks like they are just as good, if not better, than they were last year. One thing that is going to be a very big focal point, I think, for the Toronto Blue Jays moving forward, and maybe not as much in this specific game, the Kevin Gausman-Yamamoto matchup, but now you're going to have, at least looking at the starting rotation, you're going to have outings where you have Kevin Gausman, you have Dylan Cease, you have guys like Eric Lauer, then you're going to have guys like Patrick Corbin, you're going to have guys like Lazaro Estrada, guys that you don't necessarily trust to get you wins. So where you're at now is when you have Kevin Gausman on the mound, you have Dylan Cease, you have one of those guys that is supposed to be one of your dogs, is supposed to be one of your better guys on the mound. You're going to have to take advantage of those starts. If you want to stay afloat, you got to win when your guys are on the mound. And that is going to start with your 2 best pitchers that you have. It's going to start with, we're going to scrap the first game. We're going to say it's a mini 2-game series. You got to split the 2-game series. You got to win 1. I don't think it's going to be against Yamamoto. I hope it is against Yamamoto. And then the Toronto Blue Jays pull you all the way back in and somehow win a series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, or, sweep my mini series. But we're hoping for a win. Whether it's Ohtani, whether it's Yamamoto, you need some sort of momentum from this Dodgers series before people really start to, throw this season to the wall, to the Wolves.
You know what, Carter? We're going to need our roommate, Justin Powers. He will be headed down there to watch this series. So, maybe he's bringing the good luck with him. And if you see Justin down there, say hi for us. Go up to him, make sure that maybe you buy him a beer or something if you're going down to the game. Make his little trip down there nice for him. But Carter, I wanted to touch on some injuries just before we kick out of here for the day. Just an update on Alejandro Kirk. He's undergoing thumb surgery. The timeline is still TBD, but early estimates are that 3 to 6 week period that we touched on, Carter, a little bit yesterday, or I sort of had some conversation about yesterday. Jose Berrios threw a live on Saturday and felt good. that's his update. Cody Ponce is at the doctor today, or this was yesterday. Surgery update will come tomorrow. Yimi Garcia will throw another bullpen. That's tomorrow or today, as you guys listen to this, could progress to live bullpens in a week or so. Shane Bieber also threw a bullpen on Saturday. Next slated start is also today. Trey Yesavage, we talked about, will throw again in Dunedin Thursday, aiming for 60 pitches. And Addison Barger is progressing well, but the Jays will make an IL decision on him. I believe it is today as well, Carter, right?
Yeah, it should be sometime today, the day the podcast is released, maybe the next day. Again, they don't usually take too long when it is an IL stint, and only should be a 10-day IL stint. So they got to decide whether it is just going to be a couple of days or if it is going to be that week and a little bit for Addison Barger. You bring up those injury updates. We see these tweets from analysts. We see these tweets from insiders. I don't care that these guys are throwing off a bullpen. I don't care that these guys are throwing off the mound. I care when they're back. Like, I want the timelines. And Trey Yesavage, I'll enlighten the people a little bit here. Trey Yesavage should be the first one. That's looking like it is the end of April. And once you do get Trey Yesavage, it is looking like you're going to get this little bit of a domino effect where you should get multiple people coming back within a week or two of each other. So you have Trey Yesavage being around the end of April. You have Jose Berrios probably being close to the middle of May. Shane Bieber probably be closer to the end of May, maybe even leaking in towards June. And then you have Yimi Garcia, who I actually say is before Shane Bieber, somewhere between that Jose Berrios and Shane Bieber margin. Cody Ponce, as we know, we'll be lucky if we see him at all this year. That's why I didn't want to throw him in there. Again, with Alejandro, Kirk, with Addison Barger, at least aren't confirmed timelines. So we'll have to see it as the information does come out. But I have two questions, or actually I'll do three different things I have for this one. Did want to bring up the Everydayer Club. Perfect opportunity for the people to check out everything we do have going on over there. We do have a free promo code finally. So if you guys want to check out the ad-free audio, the Discord, there's so many opportunities, and it is completely risk-free. So we encourage you guys to check that out. One thing, I got two questions for you. The first one is, how many hot dogs does Justin Powers need to have for the Toronto Blue Jays to win a baseball game? And the second one, I'll wait for your first answer, because the second one I think will be a tougher question to answer.
I'm going to say Justin's going to he'll down 7 dogs. You know, I've seen this guy. I think he didn't do the 999 challenge with us the one day. I'm going to say 7 dogs. So I'm putting that out there on the podcast. I think we need an on-field report from Justin Powers tomorrow. So again, we will request that. So make sure you check out maybe our Twitter account for a Justin Powers hot dog eating update.
I did ask him, I'm like, what's the expectation? Like, are you going there just to hammer down some hot dogs? And he said no, he's just going to enjoy some hot dogs. He's going to let the hot dogs kind of do the talking and see how many hot dogs that he deserves or how they're going down to see how many he does polish off on that day. And the last question, having a little bit of fun on this episode. Maybe won't be that fun based off of what they've done to us as viewers of the Toronto Blue Jays over the last couple days. But you have to pick one. Josh Fleming or Brendan Little in this bullpen right now against the Dodgers tomorrow. Who are we running back?
Holy Christ. I'm going Brendan Little. Fleming today made me want to absolutely bash my skull in. That was horrendous.
But you don't like 90-mile-an-hour sinkers over the middle to, Freddie Freeman when he set up outside? That's not something you like to see?
This is the thing. There's an upside with Brendan Little. It's very rarely there, but it is there. Fleming is just a bottom-of-the-barrel floor guy. We need you to eat some innings against a team that's kicking us in the teeth, so we'll give you Fleming. I don't know if I've ever hated somebody so quickly than Josh Fleming. I was just foaming at the mouth when this guy came in.
Yeah, sorry to Josh Fleming if you're listening to this podcast or any, relatives, friends.
Listen, he's probably a great guy. I'm not saying that. He's probably had his time and, he's a ball player. He's better than I am. I'll say that. But
that's what he was looking for. Everything's good now that you said that he's better at baseball than Brayden Nuasco is. So everything in the world is right now. Fleming, there's a reason I think he didn't pitch with an MLB team in 2025. When you're in the current situation the Toronto Blue Jays are in, I don't think you can be too mad about who they're bringing in because there's not really anyone available when you're at the point the Toronto Blue Jays are at. Hopefully things do get better. I'm not exactly sure if they are. But if you are here listening to this podcast and you did make it to this point, thank you guys so much for going through the grind with us. Hopefully it is, a little bit more of that roller coaster when you go all the way down to the bottom. There is still that peak where you can kind of build up that anticipation and get back to the top. The Toronto Blue Jays, unfortunately, have a long way to go to get there, but hopefully they can start with at least one win against the Los Angeles Dodgers. But Brayden, is there anything else, even positive to add? Like, did you eat something cool today? Like, is this weather going to be nice tomorrow? Like, give me something positive after the atrocities that we've seen from the Toronto Blue Jays over the last couple days.
Yeah, Thanksgiving was good. Had some good
Easter?
food. Had some leftovers.
Not quite Thanksgiving, but
Easter.
Similar food.
Easter. Yeah, my brain's mush. I was too busy bashing against the wall after this game. So, Easter. Easter was good. Thanks for asking. How was your Easter?
Yeah, the food was good. The baseball was not. I think that's how we're going to end things off. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we have some better Toronto Blue Jays moments tomorrow.